Well, thank you for being here. My name is John Jungmann, Superintendent of Springfield Public Schools, and it's a pleasure to provide an update regarding our upcoming bond issue and the facility master planning process that we've been doing for the last year. As you go throughout this presentation, I would encourage you to write questions down if you have any things that you would like to go over either at the end of this meeting or send to us and submit to us to make sure that we can get answers to you, and jot anything else down that you would like to chat about regarding this bond issue. So let's get started. Proposition SPS. What we know is that we've been through a facility master planning process for about a year at this point. And that facility master planning process has led to a bond proposal. This is where we started in that process. 78% of our schools were originally built over 50 years ago. We've done a lot of upgrades since they've been built. We put air conditioning, we've redone roofs, we've did additions, but our buildings are aging and we think that there are some needs, and that's been identified over and over again as we go through capital planning, that our needs exceed our budget. The Board of Education, when I had the opportunity to take this position, said that a facility master plan was a necessary next step, and they had actually started that once before. And we restarted that process. We issued an RFP in October of 2015, and then we hired MGT of America in January of 2016 to complete an assessment of our facilities. That was the starting part for this facility master plan. So what did MGT do for us? They came in and they assessed and scored our facilities in these areas: building condition, site condition, education suitability, and technology readiness. In addition, they facilitated a couple public engagement and community collaboration meetings, multiple actually, nearly 10 of those. They conducted an online survey with over 1,000 responses to get feedback from teachers and parents and kids and community members regarding the quality of our schools. In addition, they developed options. So after they went through the process of learning, they developed some recommendations for the board to consider. How did they go through that evaluation process is an important thing for us to understand. Number one, they took those 4 categories and really dove deep into our facilities. Number one was building condition. And that was really based on the deferred maintenance items. If you think of heating and air systems and roofs and the internal structure of the building, they really analyzed each one of our facilities in those areas. They also looked at educational suitability. So how big are the classrooms? Do they offer the right programming that we desire for our kids in 2017? They also looked at the site. So as you think about driving around our schools, they looked at the playgrounds, they looked at the sidewalks and the fencing and the ball fields as an analysis, and they also looked at technology readiness. And when we say that, we don't just mean the devices, we mean the infrastructure, the Wi-Fi ability, the racks and the switching and the closets and all the things that are necessary to make sure that your students have access to the tools they need in their classroom. So each one of those was evaluated and then it was scored. And if you see on the slides, you're going to see that 50 points were given to the building condition, 40 points for educational suitability, and then 5 each for site condition and tech readiness. And they were weighted that way because each one of those comes with a cost impact. So we appreciate the data that this gave us because we now know more about our buildings. We know how we scored. So when they did that analysis, they came back and said, you have some significant opportunities for improvement. Unsatisfactory or poor, we actually had 43% of our schools fall into that category. In the fair category, scoring between 70 and 79 on that assessment, we had 41% of our schools. And then we had 16% of our schools in the good to excellent range. So a vast variety of assessments on the quality of each of our learning environments. So what do you do with that? Well, we took that information and we listened to the public. We said, we need to hear more from you. So we had the first input process, then we went back and had 15 additional public meetings, internal focus groups. We had 2,700 online surveys. We coupled that with the facility assessment. We had multiple meetings where the board dug into the data, as well as a dedicated retreat. And from that, we have a resulting facility master plan. That plan really does just a few things. It defines a learning vision and a quality schools vision for Springfield Public Schools. It also outlines the investments necessary to make sure that our schools are all they need to be for our students today and tomorrow. And it also outlines what those investments can have as an impact in our community when it talks about attracting and retaining our businesses and our students for future generations to come. So that's what we've done. And here's what the product is. The final product for the facility master plan came to these conclusions. Number one, it's a two-phase facility master plan. It stretches out over 12 years. It includes 40 projects. It's very comprehensive. 22 schools that were currently rated in that unsatisfactory to poor area now will be improved through the reconstruction of 7 elementary schools and 4 middle schools, as well as renovations, upgrades, and additions at 8 additional campuses. In addition to that, those schools that were in the fair category, 21 of them would be improved through renovations, upgrades, and/or additions. These are quality facilities that just need investments to make sure that they can last for continuously and meet students' needs for decades to come. So we affect all of those schools, plus we make an investment in early childhood education for our students. This facility master plan also has 600 additional seats for preschool expansion that could happen over the next 10 to 12 years. Over that time, just to be aware, there are 4 schools that close in the process: Bowerman, Campbell, Delaware, and York. Now, none of those are going to happen next year, but over the 10 to 12 years, as facilities are replaced, then these schools would close over those 10 to 12 years. That plan was actually adopted by the Board of Education in December of 2016. So they went through the process starting in January with all the input and adopted the plan. They also adopted at that time some really important key things that we need to understand: guiding principles. It's not just about the facilities, it's about how we do the facilities and what we're trying to get done. Here are a few of them. They had 10 guiding principles. Some of the most important ones, I think, number one is quality. That is what we're trying to do: provide a quality learning environment and working environment for our students and staff so that we can assure learning takes place. Another one that's very important, and we've seen some significant gaps through this process, is equity. We need equitable resources and opportunities for all kids, no matter where they live in Springfield. This facility master plan has a significant impact on the equity that exists in our community, and we'll talk about that as we see what some of the details are here in just a few moments. In addition, we have something on class size. What we need people to understand, this is really an effort to work on facilities, and it's not an effort to change staffing models or class size. We value small class size, and the ratio for students per teacher would not be affected through this process. So the board has said class size can't be negatively impacted through the process. In addition, we heard this throughout the community over and over again: neighborhood schools matter. People want them to be community centers. They want to be engaged in into their local environment. So neighborhood schools are a value we have, and we want to continue that value. So this plan is designed to keep the reconstructed and renovated schools within the boundaries that currently exist or very close to them. We don't want to relocate schools into region outside of the places that are closest to the students and the families. So neighborhood schools matter to us, and they are a part of our guiding principles. In addition, I would say something else that really was important to the board to make sure that we captured as a principle was staffing impact. We have great teachers and we have great support staff. This facility master plan is not designed to negatively impact staffing. There might be some efficiencies that play out on a process where we've built a new building or you have a combination campus, but that would not require anyone to be laid off or happen anything to their employment negatively. Anything that would happen would only happen through the regular attrition process with annual turnover. So no negative staff impact. Last thing I would say is school is community center. And there's 10 of these, and you can dig into each one of them, but the school as a community center is something that the board has really invested in, and we see it happening in a lot of our areas. We see Robertson and what's going on in that area. We've seen Sherwood turn into a community center with a partnership with the Boys and Girls Club, and we've seen Fremont in its new construction focused on extending the learning into the evenings for our kids and for our parents. We want schools to be community centers. These are not just assets to be used between 7:30 and 4 o'clock during the regular school year. We expect that these assets are for our community and they will be invested in and used by many members throughout the entire day, throughout the entire year. So those are some guiding principles. You can dig into any of the other ones that are of high value to you, but those are the things that make sure that we have continuity. This is going to happen over 10 to 12 years. We will have new board members. We will have shifts in community makeup. All of those things will play out. So we need something to make sure that we have consistency in the deployment of this facility master plan. So from those guiding principles, we kind of move on into what's the plan look like when we take it to the taxpayers? What does the actual bond issue look like? Because the facility master plan is 2 phases, so we're going to dig into what it's going to look like and learn a little bit about what our stakeholders told us as we began to ask for feedback throughout this process. We did an independent survey of 600 SPS stakeholders regarding satisfaction data in our system, planning for the future, and their support of a bond issue, as well as what are their highest priorities in the areas of facility improvements. These questions were asked, and here are some of the results. Number 1, when we asked for taxpayer feedback about the highest priority to address, number 1 thing, overwhelming, 2 to 1, is greatest needs first. So we have inequities. We need to invest in places where we have the greatest needs and we can make the greatest impact and close the gap for our students. So 57% said greatest needs first. They also said be fiscally responsible and work on equity. And we think the plan that we've developed at this point does all of those things. In addition, we wanted some results to say, how are you feeling about how we're trending right now with satisfaction to our patrons, as well as how are we doing with planning for the future and a few other things. This data, we asked this question routinely actually. We actually asked it in 2014. At that point, it was 68% were satisfied. Today, 77% of our taxpayers said that they were satisfied with our efforts and with SPS. They also said, as they looked at the current efforts to plan for the future, that we had a 7% gain, and that was up into the 70% selection at this point. So we feel good about the satisfaction results. Then we asked, so based on those things, what do you think about this tax increase to fund phase 1 of this facility master plan? We had 65% say they would favor the tax increase of a minimal, it's $46 over 2 years for a market value house of $100,000. And they said they would support that. So good overall news from our taxpayers. So what's ahead? Poised with all of that information, the facility master plan, taxpayer feedback, our board actually voted on January 10th to place phase 1 of the facility master plan on the ballot in April. That is going to be Proposition SPS, and it's a $189 million bond proposal that would do a lot of things for all the schools that we've mentioned. The increase based on that proposal would be 24 cents on the debt service levy, and it would need to pass by 4/7 majority, which is 57.14% affirmative vote. In addition, the board phased in the language of the levy, so in the bond language or in the ballot language, it also calls for the increase to be phased in over 2 years, 12 cents in 17 and 12 cents in 2018 in order to lessen the taxpayer impact and spread it out. So based on those things, we have moved forward with phase 1 request. And this is what happens in phase 1. We really do what the taxpayers asked us to do, which is address some of the most critical needs first. It focuses on the largest projects that can have the greatest impact while balancing, the different phases of the schools. That some of the projects are so large that we would need a couple phases. It provides improvements that reach all grade levels and all of our feeder patterns. So opportunities to improve the entire community. It also balances the number of projects in each phase, and it requires our students to be temporarily replaced. You can't do $199 million of bond all at once. This would happen over 5 or 6 years, so it balances some of those things. It also balances the work to be completed throughout the phases based on feedback from our professional workers, workforce, and construction materials so that we get best value for our taxpayers. Now, the timeline for sequencing those projects would happen after voter approval in April and after we have expert advice regarding the best way to do that to maximize our effectiveness and our efficiency with those resources. So what are the projects? This is a list of all of the projects for phase 1. The total is $189 million, and you can see it's wide-reaching. Those projects the list starts with some of the most expensive projects with the biggest impact. The reconstruction sites of Pershing, which would have a new elementary and middle school. Pipkin and Boyd would have a new elementary and middle school. Reed and Robertson, new elementary and middle school. And then Jarrett and Portland would come together for an elementary and middle. And that is done through an elementary middle school combined campus, which isn't our traditional K-8 campus. These are two independent schools, but would function on a collective site for some efficiencies and for some ability to be that community center. But they'd be two independent schools with two principals, but would come together for some efficiencies and also the ability to serve families in those regions. In addition, we have significant renovations at Hillcrest. It would be a two-phase project. This would invest $15 million for phase one. Glendale is a two-phase project. This is part one of that, has a substantial investment also, and you'll see the list just continues. Kickapoo and Sunshine and Pleasant View until we get down all the way to the end and we stop with an early childhood expansion. So this does invest $4 million in early childhood classrooms that we would be filling up over the next 5 to 6 years. So a total of $189 million and multiple schools and all feeder patterns impacted through the process. What would be the direct impact on taxpayers? So that's the bond proposal, and how would we pay for that? How does that actually play out? This is what it's important to know. In Springfield, we are blessed to have a great economic engine and a robust assessed valuation because we have great businesses and great residents, and this is how our economics play out. Our assessed valuation of our entire district, and that's what we generate revenue on for debt service, is over $3 billion. Now, it's important to note that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, or the state and the federal government, provide us no resources for facilities. That is all locally generated. And it's generated through our debt service levy. That levy is applied to our assessed property. 50% of our property is residential, 30% plus is commercial, and then you see a significant is personal property, which would be cars and trucks and those kind of things, and then we have a very small sliver of agriculture. So what does it mean for those property owners? Residential real estate, those are our houses. 24 debt service levy increase for taxpayers would equal approximately $46 for residential property owners that have a market value house of $100,000. So if it's $200,000, take it times 2. If it's $50,000, you take it in half. You do the multiplication. But $46 a year for a $100,000 market value house. On the commercial side, obviously those properties are a little more expensive on average. The 24 debt service levy would increase those commercial owners a total of $384 for a $500,000 commercial market value property. We tell you those numbers because they're close to the district averages and they're round. So overall, for our tax base, we have over 72,000 residential properties. The average market value is $127,000. On our commercial side, we have 5,000 properties, or just a few over that, and our average is $682,000. On our 1,591 agriculture parcels, the value is $38,712, and then we also have 80,000 personal property pieces. All of those together represent our over $3 billion in assessed valuation and what the levy would apply to in order to generate the new funds to support this bond issue. So how do we compare? Important to think about how do we compare to some of the regional districts and our peer districts. We use these districts for multiple comparisons. But on the financial side and the enrollment side and the free and reduced side, here's what you kind of need to know about these districts. Number one, we are the largest district in the state of Missouri, fully accredited and have been for several years. Almost 25,000 students attend Springfield Public Schools. As compared to our peers, obviously our enrollments are a little different for the regional peers, but there are districts like us across the state, and a few of those are put into this. Free and reduced rates, we're kind of in the middle of this boat. We have 34.7 as the lowest free and reduced rate amongst our peers, and 71.2% for independents as the highest amongst our peers. And we run at 54.4%, so we're kind of right in the middle. So one of the things we wanted to analyze is how does our debt service levy compare to these peer districts? We have 55 cents on our debt service levy, and if you dig into that, you're going to see that that's 13th out of the 13 districts that we compare ourselves with regionally and across the state that are most like us. But that levy generates different dollars in different communities because of your assessed valuation, so we wanted to make sure and analyze that also. And as we looked at that, our levy generates $754 per student to support the facilities behind them. At that, ranks 10th out of 13th of our peer districts. So we feel like we're investing, but we're not investing quite as much as some of our peer districts, so there might be some opportunity to do a better job in that. And that's what this bond issue asks our taxpayers to do, is invest a little bit more in order to ensure that they have a great product for their community and for their kids. That's the state and regional comparison. In addition to that, we have kind of analyzed why now. Obviously, we had a facility master plan assessment done that identified some major opportunities for improvement. But as we did that, we came up with multiple reasons why now really is important for Springfield Public Schools. Number one, every kid deserves a quality learning environment, and equity continues to be a significant issue in our system. And all you have to do is drive through different neighborhoods and look at different sites to see that. This plan actually invests a lot of resources into a part of our community that we know there's been a major emphasis on. Zone 1, Northwest Quadrant, has $77 million of improvements as part of this project. That's a significant component of the project. Now, everybody is going to get some pieces because all schools across our community have some opportunities, but Zone 1 gets a significant investment, $77 million. So it's an equity opportunity for us. Second thing, the work environment of each one of our schools really impacts our ability to attract and retain the best teachers. A quality working environment matters, and we all know the most impactful component of any learning environment is the teacher. We want the best teachers, we think we have the best teachers, but in order to make sure that we have them for the future, we need to be able to attract and retain the best, and part of that is quality schools for kids. The third thing, SPS must be positioned to compete. If you're paying any attention at the legislative level, both at the state and the federal level, you know that school choice is on a lot of people's minds. We're not afraid of competition, but in order to compete, we need to make sure that our schools have our students have the best schools and the best teachers, and this investment positions us to compete at a better level. Also, we believe that investments in our schools are investments in our neighborhoods. Facility upgrades in our neighborhoods really can spark economic revitalization. We know home ownership declines when school quality declines, and reinvestment in facilities can spark some improvements. So we think this could help spark some of our areas that need home ownership to increase, and they need economic investments, both residential and commercial. The final thing is, we think this time it's a high value for taxpayers. If you think about interest rates and the potential for them to rise, which we know there is significant potential for that, today is a great day to get the best value for our taxpayers and be able to do the most for our kids. So those are some significant reasons of why now. So over the last 20 minutes approximately, I've presented you with a lot of information regarding the planning process, all the way up through community feedback and the resulting bond issue and the things that are in it, the reasons for it, and most importantly, the guiding principles behind it so that we know that it will be delivered effectively for all of our students. I hope that helps clarify some questions that you may have, and you may have additional. So at this time, make sure that you jot those down. Whether or not we have someone right there ready to answer them or not, we're going to collect all of those questions and make sure that you get an answer to each and every one, because it's important that we have informed voters as they go out on April 4th to decide about Proposition SPS and how it will impact our kids and our community. Thank you so much for giving me a little bit of your time today, and have a great day.